You're listening to episode number 107 of the Transform Your Life from the Inside Out podcast. In this episode, we talk about a bit of self-image psychology, and I'm going to tie it into spirituality. But the title this week is I Am Who I Say I Am. Keep listening. Hi, I'm Jim Fortin, and you're about to start transforming your life from the inside out with this podcast. I'm widely considered the leader in subconscious transformation, and I've coached super achievers all around the world for over 25 years. Here, you're going to find no rah-rah motivation and no hype, because this podcast is a combination of brain science, transformational psychology, and ancient wisdom all rolled into one to take your life to levels you've never thought possible. If you're wanting a lot more in life, to feel better, to heal, to have peace of mind, to feel powerful and alive, and to bring more abundance and prosperity into your life, then this podcast is for you, because you're going to start learning how to master your mind and evolve your consciousness. And when you do that, anything you want then becomes possible for you. I'm glad you're here. You know, the title of this episode is I Am Who I Say I Am. And I'm sure you've heard of Rene Descartes, and his phrase that all of us know is, I think, therefore I am. This is such a simple yet powerful phrase and concept. It's so simple and yet so powerful that most of us miss it. And the irony in life as human beings is humans love to make things very difficult. We love to overanalyze, overthink, and we often miss the simplicity right in front of our face. There's a phrase that I was taught many years ago in conjunction with what I'm talking about now. It's a phrase that, it's my version of this, but it's a phrase that's helped me tremendously for many, many years, at least 2 decades. And I was taught this phrase by a shaman, and I want to share it with you. Perhaps you'll find equal value. And I have mentioned it in the podcast before, but I want to share it again. And the phrase is this: the world is this way or that way because I tell myself the world is this way or that way. I'll repeat it. The world is this way or that way because I tell myself the world is this way or that way. And if you take that, as simple as it is, and you apply it to your own life, you'll find that your life is exactly the way that you say that it is. And this is your self-image. This is your identity. So the way that you say that it is the way that you've learned that it is. And you might have learned that the world is hard, or you have to struggle, and or the world is easy. It's all up to you. You know, something that I tell people a lot, and I don't know, maybe I have a fair amount listening, and I hope my intention is not to put anybody's career off or put anyone down. But when people go into therapy, the outcome that they will get in their therapy depends upon how they approach it and what their belief is about the therapy. So if a person thinks that it's going to be hard to change, then guess what? It's going to be hard to change. If they think it's going to be easy to change, then it's going to be easy. Why? Because your world is this way or that way because you tell yourself your world is this way or that way. And like I said a few minutes ago, it's so simple that we miss it. By the way, I did say on the last podcast that I'm wanting to transition this podcast. I said on the last episode, not the last podcast, that I want to transition the podcast into having more of a spiritual bent. And I'll get to that in just a moment. So right now I do want to weave, because this is what came to me for this week. I want to weave some self-image psychology and some identity into this week. And then we'll go some what I consider to be spiritual places with it. If you look at your external life, meaning your relationships, your health, your bank account, everything in your life, it all corresponds to what I'm telling you right now, your internal. And your internal is how you see the world, and how you see the world is how you tell yourself that it is. And I know I've told this story many years ago, but a friend of mine in New York City, when I lived there back in 98, 99, 2000, and 2000, into 2001, he used to always say that there are no good women, in the world. And I used to laugh at that. I'm like, for crying out loud, we live in Manhattan. I mean, Manhattan alone has like 4 million women. You can't tell me there are not, there's not one for you anywhere in Manhattan. And Manhattan also has a heavy population of single people. And I had to go back to New York City about a year and a half ago and speak at an event. And he was single, still single. After all these years, he's been in and out of relationships. And he said when we were eating, and I think we were having lunch and a late lunch or something. And he said, Jim, there are no good women in New York City. And I thought, for crying out loud, that broken record is still playing in his head for 20 years. And this is his life because he says this is his life. The world is this way or that way, and your world is this way or that way. Let's look at something that's hitting people very hard right now at this time. And when I say time, meaning this period where we are in the world right now, the first week of April in 2020. Where's your bank account? Where's your business? Where's your job? And look at that. Look where things are, because where things are is a result of where you have told yourself that things are in the past, and now you're seeing evidence of that with what's happening in the world right now. What I mean by that is if there's no money in your bank account at some point in your past, which the past doesn't exist, there's already been an episode on that, and I'm going to create another one very quickly on that. But where you are in your life right now is a reflection of what you've been telling yourself about what life is and what it isn't. There was somebody in one of my transformation groups that posted this morning, and she said, I've got all these bills piling up. And that's not a story. That's not something I'm telling myself. That's a fact. What she wasn't understanding is what's most important is not the bills piling up, but what was she telling herself, which I'm talking about now. What was she telling herself about the bills piling up? And what she was telling herself came from her identity. And our identities are simply made up because they are things that we tell ourselves. And as I said for the third time now, or fourth time, our world is this way or that way because we tell ourselves our world is this way or that way. It's so simple. And trust me, I've been there. I've been there on this. I mean, I've told myself in the past that life is hard and you got to struggle and money's not easy and living paycheck to paycheck. I've been where a lot of people are in life. And as I look back many years later, it's simply me telling myself, not because the world was that way, it's because I was telling myself the world was that way. So a question for you is, how hard or how easy are you making your life? That's something I really want you to think about. It's so easy, and I know I do it too. It's so easy to listen to a podcast and go, oh, good point, good point, good point. Oop, distracted. I forgot about the good point that I just learned. Let me forget about every bit of that and go right back to my old patterns again. Right now, I'm at my home in Sedona, Arizona. And you might have heard me say on other episodes that I live between Sedona, Arizona and Dallas, Texas. Sedona is two worlds apart, by the way, and I am moving full time to Sedona. Sedona is very powerful energetically. It's very, very spiritual. The energy is, for anyone that can feel energy and sense energy, it's a very, very powerful place. And I was just sitting on the back deck, and my back deck opens up to an amazing view. And Sedona is, well, it's nighttime, and Sedona is what's called a dark sky community. Basically, we have streetlights on some parts of the town. It's a little bitty town. There's only 10,000 people who live here, and we have about 4 million visitors per year. But right now, there's nobody because of coronavirus. But it's so quiet here that you can hear a pin drop. I mean, you're literally just like in this little bubble in the universe. And overhead, it's just, you can see on a clear night the entire Milky Way and all the stars. I mean, it's just like amazing. And as I was saying a minute ago, we do have some street lights, but in the residential neighborhoods where I live, it's pitch black. There are no street lights, there are no lamp posts, there are no overhead street lights. I mean, when you walk outside at night, if there's no moonlight or any of that, I mean, it is pitch black. And the reason I'm telling you this, I was just sitting out back and looking at all the stars. I mean, just you can see all the gases of the Milky Way. And you're just kind of suspended when you're in a place like this, when there's no distractions. I mean, it's so quiet and so dark here. You're suspended. And what popped into my mind is what I've been taught by a shaman, is that there is no such thing as time. Time is a human construct. We made it up so we could understand this 3D experience. And it's basically our attempt as human beings to add order to life, when in physics there is no such thing as time. And secondly, I was thinking about something and I was told this. And when I say I was told it, it's just very powerful. What I was told is I was told that the day that Shiva became Shiva, the day that Christ became Christ, the day that Buddha became the Buddha, were the days they recognized that they knew absolutely nothing. And it's been drilled in my head for many years that we know nothing. And I know that you're probably thinking, well, Jim, then why am I listening to you if you know nothing? Well, it's definitely that I am aware of things, but in the grand totality of things, I know nothing as you know nothing. And the interesting thing in the world that we live in, most people know they know a lot when most people know nothing. But as I was sitting here on the back deck, as I said, the infiniteness of the Milky Way ahead of me, above me, and I'm looking up and I see all these stars. And we're just one sector, literally, where we are in our planetary system. We are literally one galaxy of 400 billion galaxies. And it just blows my mind that we're one of, literally, we're like one star. The sun is our star, is one star of 400 billion stars in this particular galaxy. And there are like, I don't know, they say 4 to 500 billion galaxies in the universe. And this is one universe of multiverses. So we basically, even if we think that we do, we don't know anything. And I promise you, stay with me. I am going somewhere with this in this particular podcast. I'm not just going down the rabbit hole going, follow me. There's somewhere that I want to go with this. But where I want to go is the time thing, is that most of us organize our lives out of our past history. And we organize our lives out of, well, when I was 7, my grandfather taught me this. And when I was, 3, I learned this. And my mother taught me this when I was little. And my parents and my grandparents and society and my pastor, I heard this when I was in church when I was 9. And what I want to share with you is that none of that exists anymore. That's all what I call your personal history. But your personal history doesn't exist because time doesn't exist. So, given my last comment about the galaxy and the infiniteness of the galaxy, how arrogant of us to think that we really, really know anything. And I know that that sounds, as I said, paradoxical and perhaps oxymoronic that I'm sharing things with you guys. And what I know is that I only know relative to this little bitty, little speck of the time, and I use that in quote, time space continuum that I'm in to share with you guys right now. So, where am I going with this? You're probably wondering, Jim, get to the point. What are you talking about here? What I want you to look at right now, and it's in my lifetime, it's never been more prevalent than it is right now, is look at everything that everyone's doing in the world. All the fighting for survival and people still hoarding food, and it's ridiculous to me. It's starting to ease up, but people hoarding toilet paper. And every bit of this is based upon past history, meaning what survival means to them, what's happening in the world, what's not happening in the world, what it means to their life that things are happening in the world, what it means to their job, what it means and means and means and means and means and means. And people are making all this meaning about what's happening in the world, and it's all from their past history, and none of it probably means any of that. Let me share with you a little tangent. I'm going to do a podcast later about meaning. Most people are going into survival mode right now about what the coronavirus means. The face mask and the gloves and the social distancing. And by the way, I totally respect that it is a real virus and you should take whatever precautions are necessary for you. But all these people, if you look at any of the news, the meaning is, oh my gosh, this is happening and that's happening and the world's coming unglued and all these kind of things. And the meaning that I'm giving it, which is not the point of this podcast, which is why I said I'll talk about it later, the meaning that I'm giving it is, you know what? The planet is cleansing itself. And I don't mean of human beings, which human beings in itself can be metaphorically a virus. But if you look now, that they're saying that they're seeing dolphins now in the canals of Venice. They're having clean air in Beijing. I mean, I was looking at something yesterday, scientific, how there's less seismic activity on the planet. And I think the title was The Planet Stopped Rumbling. But the planet is healing itself. the animals are healing itself. And at least in my groups, I see people saying, you know what? I'm at home. I'm quarantined. I'm spending time with my kids. I'm connecting. I mean, this is also, many people see it as a time of survival and fear. That's not the meaning that I'm making of this. The meaning that I'm making and the way that I say that it is for me is that this is a time for those that actually get it. This is a time for healing and regeneration and rejuvenation for the planet. So the point of this podcast is most of us are where we are in life based upon, in the masses solely on our need for survival, which that's how billions and billions of people are living right now. They're so afraid of their job and they're so afraid of their money and they're so afraid of coronavirus. And it's all 3D ego survival based. And I get that. And you may or you may not be doing that. I don't know. But what I want to share with you is because we talked about Descartes, I think, therefore I am. Who and what you think you were and how you said the world is and is not is how you were living. And then boom, coronavirus smacks you. And guess what? As I alluded to in the last podcast, many people are not growing, they're not evolving, they're not transforming who and what they are based upon what's happening in the world. They're just being their old self. So really what I want to ask you again is what's happening right now on the planet can be life-changing for you based upon recognizing that your life is what you say that it is. Descartes, I think, therefore I am. What I'm asking you is this is life-changing if you get it, is that you have an opportunity right now, real world, with the real world reflecting back to you in real time, and I use the word time and quote, experience, the world is reflecting back to you how you're managing yourself in the world. And how you're managing yourself is based upon how you're saying the world is. And how you're saying the world is based upon your identity and who you say that you are. Now, a big takeaway, because I've been in my own mind about this, and I'm definitely not worried. As I was sitting, let's go back to the back deck for a moment. As I was sitting out there, pitch black, the Milky Way overhead, and I'm just looking at what's going on in the world, and I'm looking at how it affects me, which is egotistical to some degree. But how is this affecting me? How is it going to affect my business? And in that moment, it dawned on me. It dawned that I was asking that question based upon who I was in the moment when I was asking that question. And I recognized, which I know this, is that I can be anyone that I choose to be, and so can you. I can be anyone that I choose to be, and so can you. That's my free will. That's my divine right. That is my right to choose because, see, here is a truth I'm going to share with you, and it's so simple that we miss it. I am a creator. And so let's go back to the question that I ask myself, is how is this going to affect me? It's going to affect me how I choose to allow it to affect me and what I choose to create. Let that soak in. So how is the coronavirus going to affect you and your bank account and your job and your life? Are you living by resignation in the old you, or are you living by possibility? And it's going to affect you based upon what you choose. And there's an episode here that I actually created called Life is Choice. It's going to affect you based upon what you choose to do with your free will, which is your cosmic and divine right. Now, what most of us are doing is we're creating out of the context of our past. And if you look at your past life, wherever you live in Timbuktu, you live in Trenton, New Jersey, or Tokyo, Japan, or Lima, Peru, or Sydney, Australia, or London, England. I mean, people all over the world. Obviously, it's not a big deal this day and age. People all over the world listen. But you're a fishbowl. It just reminds me, popped into my mind, in the metaphor that I'm using here. When I lived in New York City, you could, for the most part, live within a 2-block radius. Anything you needed, a dry cleaner, the post office, or stamps many years ago, or whatever was within a 2-block radius or 3-block radius of your apartment. That was your fishbowl. So wherever you live in your family and your social context, this is your fishbowl. But what I want to point out is Earth is also a fishbowl, and this fishbowl is also in the cosmos. So no longer choose from the fishbowl that you live in, meaning the neighborhood and the street and the past history. Choose from the cosmos, which is infinite possibility. Now let's go back to what I was asking you a bit ago and asking myself, what am I going to create as a result of the coronavirus happening? Being 100% truthful with you, what I'm creating, and I'm still fumbling with it a little bit, but what I'm creating is this is a huge opportunity for me to reach more people, to be a leader, to lead people to higher thinking and higher ways of being as a result of what's happening. Or I can actually say, you know what, my business has done really well. I've made millions and millions of dollars running my transformational programs. The economy is a little slow right now. I'm just going to hang out by myself and do nothing, blah, blah. No, I'm looking at this right now as a dramatic and massive opportunity to step up to the plate and be a leader, because people are looking for leaders, and I don't mean the political kind, but we're looking for leaders to lead us to higher ground. And right now, I'm asking myself, and I'm sitting with in silence, how do I be that leader to lead more people to higher ground of self-awareness and higher ground of you know what, into your power, because you have it despite what's happening in the world. But if you look at the world, and today is Wednesday, April the 8th, 2020, and you look at the world, you look at the news, which I don't read it. You look at Facebook and all the fighting and the bickering. You have some people moving ahead and trying to pull people ahead. You've got some people pulling people backwards, and the fear, and then you have people that are fearful. They're criticizing, and they're verbally beating up people that are not in the fear, and they're calling them stupid because, which I just read, because they're not in fear. I literally read which I was logging on the Facebook to go to one of my groups, and the post that was open literally said, "People that aren't in fear right now are stupid." And that comment was just, I was like, seriously, you're bringing your past history and your fear, and you're spreading it, like exploding all over other people on Facebook. But you look at Instagram and you look at the chaos in the world and the masses, and so many people are afraid of what's happening in the world. As a matter of fact, one of my students, she lives in Switzerland and in Spain, and she just posted how she was walking her dog in a very remote area in Spain. Somebody called the police well, obviously in Spain, in the neighborhood, called the police and reported her for walking her dog, and she got fined for walking her dog because the person who saw her was that fearful of another person walking their dog. How many yards from my front door? The person doing it, how many yards from that front door? But that's the kind of fear that people are living in. And what I want to share with you, listening wherever you are in the world, you don't have to be in that kind of fear. Because if you're in that kind of fear, that's what you're choosing. And the upside is, once you get your mind around this, and then once, Corona passes, and it will pass because everything passes, now you become a more powerful person. You have these tools to recognize that, you know what, I don't have to go into fear because the rest of the world does. Also, just a thought, all this mumbo jumbo on the news, and there's so much negativity on the news. What if the news is wrong? I mean, there's so much shoot from the hip reporting and stories, and it's just day by day nonsense they're reporting. And again, I want to say for the second time, take whatever precautions you need to keep yourself safe and healthy, whether that be medical or whatever it is for you. But from the point that I'm looking at and I'm talking about in this podcast, people don't recognize that the actions of fear, whatever actions that you go into that are fear-based, simply create more fear. So be very careful. And then I want to tie that back to the beginning of this podcast, is you are who you say that you are. And I say to myself, I am who I say that I am. And I have to look at, who am I being with everything that's happening in the world right now? And that's what I ask you, is who are you being? Are you hooked to other people and all the fear, and is that the way that you're being and who you want to be? Or the third sigh and I'm doing it for effect, but in this episode, are you being at peace? Are you being at gratitude? Are you being in grace? And are you looking at, what if Jim is right? What if the planet is healing? What if the animals are healing? Even though we're going through this temporary setback on the planet, how is the world going to be better? In what ways that I can appreciate just a little later on because we're going through what we're going through right now. There's another phrase that I've lived by over the years. I'm not perfect at it, but it's a phrase that's very important to me. And the phrase is the common man is hooked to other men and the spiritual warrior is hooked to infinity. So what we could say is the common person is hooked to other people and the spiritual warrior is hooked to infinity. Now, I'm going to share with you, and I'm very certain about this, I am not hooked to what the common person is posting on Facebook. It doesn't ruin my day. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't put me into fear. It doesn't send me into a tailspin. I am not hooked to what people are putting on CNN or Fox or any other news outlet. What I'm ultimately hooked to is that I am a cosmic being. And what's happening on the planet, it's only going to be, number one, it's so temporary even on my lifetime on the planet, and my lifetime on the planet's not very long. So why not choose to be at peace while I'm here? So what I'm hooked to is infinity. I'm hooked to being that cosmic being. I'm hooked to how much further and how much more can I connect with my soul, and how much can I use my soul to nourish me in a time when the masses are literally shaking in fear for very little reason. And when I say very little reason, somebody could take issue with that. But you know what? What's happening on this little bitty speck of a planet, which I told you is, one star in a 400 billion in this galaxy, and we're one galaxy of 400 billion in the universe. What's happening right now on this planet is nothing in the course of the universe. Nothing. So why would I choose and why would I put my attention into getting into every bit of that? So back to the title of this podcast, and the title was I Am Who I Say That I Am. Do you say who and what you are based upon your past history and the world around you? Or do you say who and what you are based upon truth? And that truth is this: you have free will. You are a creator. You can choose. And the question is, are you choosing from possibility of who and what you can be, or from your past and resignation of what you've been in the past? Because be careful how you choose. That will determine how you're being, and that will be the experience that you're having in your 3D life, meaning your physical world around you. Transformational takeaway this week is this: you are who and what you say you are in any given moment. Just sit with that. Let that settle in. You are who and what you say you are in any given moment. And with what's happening in the world, who do you choose? Use your free will, which you're using it anyway if you don't even know it, even if you're choosing in ways that are counterproductive. But use your free will, be the creator, and choose to be a light. Choose to be a leader for people around you. Because every one of you listening, guess what? I don't, so I know that many of you don't. I don't impact the world, but I influence the world through my podcast and through people that are in my life and my friends and my family. And guess what? You can do the same. So choose in a way that's empowering and literally is about transformation and evolution for us and the planet, and avoid choosing in ways that take people back into fear and into regression and a place where people are not transforming. Okay, I used to always say at the end of every episode, the next episode is going to be XYZ, and tell you what it is. I have no idea what the next episode is going to be, so tune in and find out. And I do want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for continuing to listen and share. And I promise you, as I continue to find a new direction with the podcast, my promise is that I will continue to bring things that I know are valuable to you, that will help you in your own growth and your spiritual evolution. That being said, also, if you have any ideas, it's in the outro, but email support at jimfortin.com. I'm also thinking about maybe opening up and doing some Q&As with people, doing them live and posting them. But again, the direction that I'm going is people that are more interested in, for the sake of it, spiritual evolution and transformation, not just so they can transform, so they can buy a new house and a new Ferrari and people are going to look up to them and people are going to validate them because they make more money or whatever. That's not my interest. My interest at this point in the podcast, however I may serve, working with a shaman for as many years as I have, however I may serve and bring the wisdom and knowledge to you, please let me know ideas you might have. Again, support at jimfortin.com. Okay, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you over on the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this entire podcast. If you're the kind of person who likes to help others, then share this with your friends and family. You know, if you found value, they will too. So please share via your social media channels. Also, if you have questions, I'm here to assist. You can email me questions to support@jimfortin.com, and I may even use your question for a future podcast episode. Also, if you want transformational content like this daily, connect with me on Instagram. My Instagram name is I am Jim Fortin. Finally, I do have a personal request. I believe that we're all here to help others and to grow and evolve ourselves. Together, you and I, let's help more people. If you would please leave a review on iTunes, and a good one, by the way. I'd be grateful, and through your assistance together, we can transform more lives. Thanks for listening.